This is really crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh. Hi, Sylvia.
Hi, Sarah.
I
For
can't
the
believe I feel like
fourth
you're
time.
in the twilight zone.
Yeah.
So for my listeners, we now only have 30 minutes to record what would have been an hour podcast
Oh,
because we've
wow.
tried four times now. So we're just going to dive right in. For those of you that are listening, first of all, thank you guys. You know what to do. Share the podcast, rate it on Spotify and YouTube, subscribe so that you're notified of new episodes when they drop. And if you've been watching, you know that I was recently on Sylvia's podcast and we talked all about healing, spirituality, and growth. And so I'm interested in, because that is not what you do for a living. And so I'm interested in where this thirst and hunger comes from for healing and spirituality, because I have a little intuition, but I'll share it later.
Okay. Well, to sum it up rather than the long version, I can say a series of traumatic and stressful events. So I'm more scientific minded. That's, for fitness and all that. Um, I've always used science and going through difficult periods as a I don't want to say, oh, it's because I'm a young mom, but as a young mother and just struggles I went through, and then being a naturally kind person, which I still am, has kind of made me a target for some people, and I've been safe
You
for
you mean like specifically from your traumatic background, or
as far as being kind or
yeah.
well, it's mainly people you don't really get rid of that easily, like family members.
Family.
I've
Yeah.
avoided it with other people, like outsiders. It's like, "Oh, there's a red flag. Bye." But with family members, it's like, "Oh, there's a red flag. There's another one. There's another one," and you just keep them around. But
Sometimes you don't even
there's
see the red flags because you're blinded by the fact that they're family.
exactly. So the last horrible scenario I went through, which is one that is rare. It's something that most people won't ever go through because it's just bizarre. Um, I had no place to turn but spirituality because I was essentially trapped until the legal system did its thing. So I like looked to anything and everything that would keep me from strangling someone or something like that because I had a bigger view for my life and I just had to hold it
Mhm.
together. And just throughout life, what I do a lot of perspective shifts. So I brainwash myself, not in a bad way, but I can brainwash myself if I want to reach.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of
Wait. We are not just gonna breeze by that.
yeah, I mean, I
Because
guess it sounds weird.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's like this intense mental, you might call it manipulation, but like intense. Yeah, that's an interesting way to phrase that, the brainwashing. I'm curious to hear more about that from you.
Yeah, there's literally no more accurate word than that. Like I can literally brainwash myself.
Do you
Um,
think that's a coping mechanism that you developed along the way, or is that just like one of your strengths, do you think? Because I'm asking you that because I resonate with it.
yeah, I don't think it's a coping mechanism. I think it's because Um, I see my brain as separate from my body. I always have. And
Oh,
so I see my body as a tool. And so when my body doesn't feel like doing something, then I'll make my brain find a way to reason through it and say, hey, you had to
okay.
look at it this way, or, you know, um,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
I've never been one with my body. I don't know why. I just,
This is so fascinating. Oh my gosh. I can't believe we're talking about this because you're into
uh-huh.
fitness.
Yeah. And so
You're
it
like,
seems odd,
fitness is what you do. So to hear you say I've never felt like one with my body is so interesting. Do you think that
yeah.
your obsession, because would you call it an obsession with fitness, or is it just a
No.
passion?
No, I don't believe in being okay, now here's where
We're
earlier
getting into it now. We're gonna go into it.
earlier when we spoke and it wasn't recording continuously, you mentioned, I think you said I don't know. I don't think you said strict or something like that, but uh,
Formal.
what was it? Oh, formal. Yeah.
Formal, yeah.
I make sure. So when I was growing up, I had depression and all this stuff, and I lived in a small town, and I do think the treatment I was given was a little exaggerated. So when I was a teen, um, I had really strong depression, and one day, um, after I'm a writer too, so I that's when I started writing things. I wrote down my feelings, and a teacher saw it. It was this whole dramatic thing, and then when I saw a clinician about it, I started breaking down crying, and I guess it was so severe. Next thing you know, I was in a straitjacket going to a inpatient care facility.
Oh my
All I
god.
did was break down crying. That's all I did. I didn't
Which
scream, I
which,
didn't,
by the way, is a very natural expression of emotion.
yeah, that's all I did, break down crying. And I think it was a severe response, but there are so many things that go into that. Like I said, I was in a small town. It was like there's a whole set of things. Um, and there's studies that certain groups of people tend to be sent to the crazy house more frequently. So, not to say crazy house like that, but
Yeah, I understand.
so the long story short, I watch to make sure I don't have obsessions. I don't have, I'm not unhealthy in any way. And that's because of the way, I guess, the dramatic response to just me breaking out crying. This self
Uh,
consciousness that people are going to think I'm crazy, I guess, developed. But also, I never want to have that problem. And I know I'm not really at risk of it, but if an obsession, I would make sure I don't develop. So, as far as fitness goes, it's not an obsession, it's more like I see it as maintenance. I see it
mm,
as, you have to brush your teeth and all that stuff, but I get so many benefits from fitness.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Well,
fully awake.
you probably did have to learn early on how to get all of that energy that you have inside of you. You have to figure out a way to channel it and exert it, and
Yeah.
otherwise it just kind of spirals and eats you. That's literally, our stories. I know that, I was sharing my story on your podcast, and I know that it resonated with you because you had been through something very similar as far as an eating disorder goes. Both of us have generally, naturally, I should say, gravitated towards fitness as an outlet for that, coming from an eating disorder. And I
Mhm.
would say that in that way, I can admit to being obsessive in certain ways. I can be obsessive, right? Obsessive in my thought patterns, obsessive in my practices, obsessive in my habits, obsessive in certain things. I think I'll own that. I'll be
Mhm.
transparent and I'll own that. But obsessive, I think um I have an excuse behind, like, oh, I'd rather be obsessive with my peace and my, like, mental health and spiritual connection than anything else in the world. So I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I guess the other reason I couldn't be obsessive is I've never reached my goals, right? So I've had to, the brainwashing thing, I've had to accept my limits. So I'm not going to push farther hoping for something that isn't going to happen, and I'm not going to get injured. Like one of my goals is I've been doing this 22 years. I've never been injured. So I never gave in to when I did bodybuilding. I mean, I did a great job training myself. I trained myself 100%. And then when I competed, I mean, these people looked fantastic, but I knew they had like nutritionists. Their boyfriend was a pro. They were taking this cocktail of this and that. And
Yeah.
I could have gone, well, I'm going to do, no, I said, you know what? That's unhealthy. I did one show and I backed away because ultimately I
I was
want
going to
to
ask you
be,
about this.
yeah, I have to be healthy all around. And I have other things I'm interested in. Like fitness is, a little over an hour a day. currently 5 days a week. When I before it was 7 days a week, and I noticed changing to five didn't change that much. And on the 2 days that I'm off of the gym, I still get my steps in and all that. But I don't know what to say as far as I don't want to make it seem like, oh, I do everything in perfect balance, but I just don't want to have there's just been so much disappointment that I won't be obsessed over something that's going nowhere. I'm not that I haven't met goals, but I'm not going to reach, my ultimate goal of perfect everything. It's just not going to happen.
Well, let me ask you this before we get into the fitness, because I will go there. But what I'm more curious about is, how did you recover and forgive and heal, or maybe you're still going through that process. And we've talked, and probably I'll be a part of that with you, and we'll be on that journey together. But how did you forgive or do anything in regards to what happened to you? I mean, I can't imagine. My hypnotist brain and my therapist brain goes immediately into, oh my gosh, here's a young girl who is expressing emotion, crying, and she gets basically um extremely punished in a straitjacket, in a hospital because of that. I can only imagine what that does to you. So, like, tell me about that.
Well, I mean, okay, there's a couple of things. I was very upset, and there's a reason I joined the military.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I
By
was
the way,
angry.
are you still in the Air Force, or former?
It was former Air Force. I work for the Air Force now as a technical writer. But I chose the Air Force. Ultimately, I was going to do the Marines because I was an angry kid. um, but I chose the Air. I chose the Air Force because, okay, a little background. I guess you'll get a clue of how my childhood was. I was also a parent at the time. I was an angry kid and a parent. Um,
Best
so
combo.
yeah, no, I wasn't. It was just not the best environment growing up. So I said, look, I have a child. I can't go into the Marines. That's dumb. So I tested for the Air Force and went in the Air Force. So I used some common sense, um, some sense at that point and joined the Air Force instead of Marines. I wanted to be the few and the proud, but you can't put yourself at risk like that when you have a child. So yeah,
Wow.
one of the ways I dealt with it was, yes, I was angry. Um, and I saw the military as an outlet. But at the same time, I was young, and a lot of things I went through between that age and my early 20s kind of just I didn't feel it as much as I feel things now. So I was so caught in youthful stupidity, I guess, that I didn't see the impact that I see now. I kind of just like moved on.
Yeah.
So
Which most people do.
yeah, yeah.
Most people do. And most people don't revisit it, though, which is kind of what led me to my initial question with you, out of curiosity, was, and you kind of already answered it, but this most recent experience that you had with a family member and the law and all these things
Mm.
probably ignited some need to, like, okay, I need to, like, revisit some of this stuff because I need some healing with this, and spirituality will definitely do that.
Yeah, so the thing, as I said, when I was young, I was dumb. And things just, I didn't notice the impact. Unfortunately, when you're older and you go through traumatic things, uh-oh, I don't want to like cry. Um,
Yeah, that's okay.
it's a lot harder. I'll just put it at that. And um,
Because you're more conscious.
yeah. Um, I've never been able to wrap my head around the forgiveness thing. Um, and I don't think I will. Um, I just I think that's something I would need to come to a hypnotist for, because it's like so many like when it's family, you keep them around for so long that you found that they've infected everything. Like, there could be a phrase, and when you just hear that phrase that everyone says all the time, you're brought back. Like, it's
Mhm.
just too much. It's too many years of it. So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's like those anchors,
mhm.
like
Yeah.
those anchors. And I don't know what it is about us women in this, I will call it an era, because I do believe that we're in an era, and I believe there are certain ones of us,
Mhm.
but man, the mother stuff is like, it seems to be a theme where we, us war, I'll just call us warrior women of this
Okay.
era, had to go through some immense pain with our mothers. And I have found, though, that through that healing process, you step into like your queendom.
Uh-huh.
It's strange. It is very strange. And I'll never pretend to understand it all. But I do know that, seasonally and cyclically too, our parents didn't, healing wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
No, nobody cared about healing. Nobody cared about childhood trauma and childhood wounds and ending the cycles. Like now we are ending the cycles. And I'm so sorry that, you know, um, that we've had to go through that. I'll just put myself, I'm with you in that trench. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I mean, and my situation as well, involved, flying monkeys and all that stuff, that phrase, when the narcissist, gets together a group of people to kind
oh,
of gang up against you. And this was in my own home.
that,
So my
so
home became a prison. My home became,
a battleground.
they were attempting to intimidate and bully me. And it was insane. It was utter insanity. And what I got from that is that family can be a complete illusion. If you're a person who is intent on deceiving people, the best way you can do it is as a member of.
With the mask of family.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's just like all these years, it's like, you know what? I didn't notice back then, but they never cared then. They never,
Yeah.
and it's people you would never drag around if they weren't family.
And I
Right.
can go down a whole rabbit hole on this, but society kind of builds us up for that stigma. Like, oh, family, blood is thicker than water, or whatever those sayings are. And I got to a point long ago, years ago, I got to a point where I was like, family is not blood. Like, just because we were raised together and born together and stuff, you do not get to hang on the accolades of being family and then treat me like complete garbage, or gaslighting and all of these types of things, and then still be in my life in an intimate way. I don't, I'm going to make my own rules. So I honor you for being able to see through that.
Oh yeah, I mean, with the brainwashing, I had to basically look at in the spirituality aspect. I mean, I learned all kinds of things. I know your podcast, you talk about entity attachments. And
Hmm.
I wasn't originally a spiritual person, but going through the situation, the idea came to me that these people might not be who I think they are. They might just be trying to destroy, I'll just say, my spirit. That might be their end game because I had, and it was my mother, a continuous person showing up whenever I make progress, continuously showing up, and then things go backward. And then in childhood, how do you allow your children to do the things that she allowed us to do without one word of guidance? Like, she just let things happen, which was just crazy. I mean, I was a parent at 17 and I was married at 18. And she just was like, "Yeah, let's go to um the whoever the officiator was for the marriage, and
Well,
I did
I
it
would
so I could be accepted in the military, but she never said
oh,
anything. She was just like at the
there
sidelines, like, yeah, my kid, she hangs out with her boyfriend in the room all day. Yeah, that's fine. She's got, like all that stuff. Like she never did anything. And with my son, I taught him early on, do not start messing with girls at a young age. And what he said to me was, "Yeah, I'd never be that stupid." And I could be offended, but I was actually happy. It's like, good, see it as stupid. See it as stupid, and
Yeah.
that's good. That'll keep you safe.
Well, there is something to be said about there's the world of angels and demons,
Yeah.
and there are still both that walk amongst this world, and that that the spiritual realm doesn't manifest itself physically. It needs
Mm.
people to do that. Otherwise, it can just kind of influence in the spiritual realm. So there are evil spirits that kind of embody people, and whether we want to call them like demonic entities that possess people, or just the spirit of ignorance, the spirit of jealousy, the spirit of anger, the spirit of arrogance, the spirit of self-centeredness. Those are also the spirits that manifest people by way of ensnaring the ego. And it just sounds like we have to remember too that these people are only able to be with you to the depth that they're able to be with themselves. And if she can't even care for herself, some people are just trapped in their own little universe. And they, no offense, but some people in that way don't even have any business having children, because you can't care for somebody in that way when you're trapped in your own darkness. But there's still a soul in there.
Yeah, and that is exactly what I say. My beliefs about all that has changed. And I agree with everything you just said there. But yeah, I do feel that there was a battle going on when I was dealing with it. And I do feel like someone was trying to get me to do something
Yep.
that would threaten my spiritual progress.
That's a spiritual attack, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
And that
gosh.
and it's weird because like I said, I was never spiritual. And but that just kept coming in my head, and that's what kept me stable, is I'm like, this is what they ultimately want, and I'm not gonna let them have it. And that's how I made it through, and I guess you could call that brainwashing, but it's also a thought that just kind of came to me. So,
So that would be almost, I mean, yeah, I guess we can call it brainwashing, or we can call it spiritual wisdom.
yeah, yeah.
And those thoughts that just come, it's like a whisper from God.
Yeah, and I've experienced that with different things, honestly. I don't have time to talk about it, but a book that I
Oh,
wrote
we
a
would have,
number.
Sylvia. I know you were
I
planning this.
know.
Like, I don't like she's guys, Sylvia was I was like, we'll probably talk for like an hour. And she's like, well, I don't like to ramble. I'm like, well, it's gonna be good conversation, so it won't be rambling. And then here we are, like technical glitches. You manifested that,
Yeah,
Sylvia.
maybe. But a book that I wrote a number of years ago, I would take these walks and I would have these ideas. And I mean, the woman who wrote what was that? Not Food for the Soul. What was it? Eat, Pray, Love. She said that her book kind of came to her, and she said it was like
Yes.
little you know, genies, I think she calls it, that kind of brought the book to her. And I feel like when I was writing my book, I feel like I was trying to convey the story of these people that I never met, but it just kind of downloaded. So, I mean, I've
Yes.
received those downloads before.
Yes.
And this, I just believed it, and it saved me. I'm telling you, it
Well,
saved.
so first of all, I had no idea that you have a book.
Yeah.
But that I just came out with my book as well.
Yes.
That's how I would describe this process as well. That this book was transmitted and channeled through me, and I was just like here for it. So what's your book called?
It's called Vanguardian, and it's basically about warriors who reincarnate.
Figure.
Yeah, yeah. who reincarnate, and there are different ranks. So I'm starting with the lowest rank. Essentially, he's like a he's like a Marine, but it's not called that in this realm. The book isn't published yet. I'm getting it to my editor this year. It has to be published this year because they actually completed it in 2014. And it's just been sitting there because I went back to college to get an English degree, and I did a bunch of got a bunch of beta readers to read it and a lot of feedback, and then life happened. When my mom came back, it was delayed by 3 more years. I was gonna
Mm.
have it published in 2021, and it's still waiting to get published. So, well, 4 more years now. So that's what I'm saying. Every time my mom, she found a way back, and then everything was delayed. And it's sad because I was raising my son at the time, and it was a pattern with him too. It's like, "Why are we living here instead of living where we were?" And it's just like
Mm. Mhm.
complete mess. So, but anyway, yes, the book.
So, so two things for you. Because I know we have time now. We've got to watch the time. And
Yeah.
we're almost time's up. So a couple things that I want to ask you. Um, what advice would you give to other people? Because there are a lot of other people that go through these cycles karmically. It sounds like a karmic
Yes.
cycle. Um, with parents or relationships or family or whatever it may be. What advice do you have?
Treat a person like a person. Don't treat them like their title. Okay? So if you see a red flag, it's a red flag. Okay? Don't go, it's a red flag, but this is my mother. It's
Yes.
a red flag, but this is my sister. You
Yes.
know, I just there was a woman I interviewed on my podcast, Lisa Romano. She just put out a video on the neglectful narcissist. And I could say one of my relatives is that. It's a person who only speaks to you on their terms. When you have a problem, they won't listen. They don't take any of your input into consideration. They just brush it off, but they'll come to you when they want something on their terms. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was going through basic, um, in the Air Force, my son was not well looked after. And I remember that he had insane diaper rash. He was screaming through the phone, crying when they were changing his diaper. And that was one of the things where it's like I had two relatives looking after him. And one of the relatives I didn't really see as um, the way that I see them now. But that was the first real red flag. You know,
Wow.
they're neglecting my child while I'm gone for this long. And there were other red flags over the years, like, why is it when I said something to you, why does the whole family know? And it has to be a negative thing. And then so would you keep a friend around that way?
Yeah.
Probably not. But because someone has a certain title, you keep them around. Well, when you do that, what happens is all those negative events end up accumulating in your life, and your brain has like just so many, it's like a mesh of bad memories, and it affects so many areas of your life. So you just have to cut them off like you would anyone else, or just keep your distance, whatever works for you.
Boundaries. Yeah. Boundaries.
Yeah, the longer you keep them around, the more you look back at your life and you have it's just riddled with bad memories, just
Yeah.
riddled.
And then resentment gets born, and then that's not a good thing for the heart. And then all of those are just bad seeds that sow bad fruit in your life and in your heart.
Yeah, and you know what? Like some days I have good days because this is still after the whole legal thing. It's going on 5 months, but it's not even fully done, unfortunately. Um, the first month, and I noticed what my brain does when I go through trauma is it tries deleting information. So it tries deleting.
That is such a natural response.
Yeah, and in the first month, just driving to different places, I just kept making the wrong turns and things. It's
Mm.
And, it was embarrassing for me because I was also, with my son. My son's in college now, but he's staying with me so that he can, He doesn't have to worry about expenses and he could focus on his degree. But it's embarrassing when you're a parent and you can't keep track of where you're driving to because your brain is just actively just deleting things, you know? So
Well,
I noticed that
it's like
about myself.
it's like we only have so much capacity, and especially when you're currently experiencing a traumatic event, a long range traumatic event,
Oh
there's
yeah.
only so much capacity that you have, and then you kind of like get down on yourself for it. Then there's shame that comes in. So it's like there's so many factors to it that start to creep in if we're not careful. We didn't even get to talk about the main thing that you do, which is
Yeah.
fitness and travel. And
Yes.
so here's what I'm gonna say. Yes, show him the shirt.
I'll
Yeah,
show them if it can be seen here. Adventure Travel Club. I also have the Wellness Travel Club.
oh my God, I love this.
Yeah. But
That's amazing. Yeah,
yes.
so I feel like almost we need to do a round two.
Yes.
And we had talked about me coming back on your show too. So I'm sure that we're gonna be, conversing again. And I just want you to tell everybody where they can find you. I was gonna say one more thing. Oh, yes.
Yes.
This is what it was gonna be. I'm gonna have you. I want you to share, with everybody where they can find you because she's a wealth. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I'm like, the more I look into you, the more I'm fascinated. I'm like, how come more people don't know about you? Um, but I'm
Because
sure that.
every few years I just fell off the
Yeah, well, you're back. You're back now.
yeah.
Here's my intuition, Sylvia, that I wanted to share with you from the beginning. I don't think that fitness and travel is like your final destination. I think that you're going to be doing something in the healing realm, however that transpires, but mark my words.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I think it'll probably be in stories. Like I said, I express myself best writing. I'm not the best speaker. I'm a much better writer.
Well, I
I
will say writing makes you a better speaker and speaking makes you a better writer.
We'll see about that. I don't think I'm a great speaker. That's why I let my guests do the speaking.
Well, Sylvia, tell my audience where they can find all of your brilliance,
Mhm.
and we'll wrap up for today.
So, my main address, it's LLAFIT.com. That's two L's, LLAFIT.com. And you'll also find me on Instagram at LAFIT blog because I started as a blogger. I'm also on YouTube, and that's it. I don't do X right now. Um, and my podcast is Lifelong Health and Fitness Conversations. I look to rebrand that though in 2025, just the LawFit podcast.
Oh,
But you can find me on any podcast platform, and I interviewed you, Sarah, on that platform, and I interview other knowledgeable people in the realm of lifelong health, fitness, mental health, and even financial prosperity.
I love it. I love it. We have connected. I don't even remember how we connected, but I'm glad that we did. And I look forward
Yes.
to the next time that we do a show together, whether it's on yours or again on mine. I'd love to have you back on mine. And until next time, you guys, we'll talk to you very soon. But Sylvia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. All right. Are we staying on?
Yeah, I was
Say
gonna
a
say
formal bye. Okay,
if
here's
you
my formal
want to just
bye to
stop,
you.
if you just want to stop recording, and then I'll say goodbye to you.